Welcome to Yes and Land, where we say yes to the reality of what you're facing, and we say and to the possibility, joy, and chapters still ahead. Today, we are pleased to have with us Kirsten Hirst. Very excited about what the conversation is going to unfold today. We're going to talk about creativity. We're going to talk about Ratatouille, which is a fantastic movie. Came out actually a lot longer ago than I realized.
Yeah, I'm not going to date myself in a bad way.
You were probably very little when it came out. I was thinking it was like a decade ago, and it wasn't. It was almost 2 decades ago, which was kind of shocking when I actually saw that prepping for this. But a wonderful movie. We'll talk more about that today. So as we kind of dive in, what I want to do first is talk a little bit about you and your background. Yeah. So, tell everybody kind of where you're at currently, and then let's roll it all the way back. Let's talk about Kirsten and creativity from a young lass.
Okay.
And what that was like for you.
Yeah, it's been a whole developing story. So currently right now, I work with you at RCG Law Group, Director of Revenue Operations, and that involves a little bit of everything, a lot of marketing, a lot of growth kind of strategy and whatnot, and then just some operational admin work as well. But I'd say the jack of all trades, wearing a bunch of hats is pretty typical of me. We're gonna roll it all the way back. So young lass Kirsten, where do we start?
Like when you were young, was creativity, art or doing things like that, was that something that you did when you were young?
100%. So I'm the daughter of an architect and a writer. And my dad, he's a wonderful architect. And I think you kind of, with architects, you kind of have like the more mathematical engineering side of things, but you also have the art side of things. And he really embodies both. So he went to school for civil engineering, but he loves Frank Lloyd Wright. I grew up with great architecture. He had so many books in his house of great architecture that I would read. And then he actually designed a house for our family growing up that was like our dream home. And
That's amazing.
Always had creativity from him.
Have you ever been to Chicago?
No, I actually haven't.
Okay, so you have to go to Chicago.
Okay.
And when you go to Chicago, the number one thing, in my opinion, you need to do is you need to take the boat architecture tour.
Okay.
So you get on a boat, there's somebody who's narrating the whole thing, talking to you, and they go along the little river there through the city.
Yeah.
And they are talking about all the history of the architecture of all of the buildings there. The different eras that were done, the styles. I mean, it was like 2 hours of like my mind exploding.
Yeah.
And it was so interesting to learn about the history and the styles. If you like architecture at all, like your dad does, have to do it.
Okay.
Sorry, it was an aside, but I had to hit you with that, all right? Okay.
I love that. That's a good tip. I need to do a little bit more traveling. And it even goes back further than I'll talk about my mom in a second, but my grandpa was a painter and an artist and a furniture maker and like all sorts of things. And so
I did not know that.
It runs in the family.
Yeah, it does.
And then my grandma, she was a singer and I think a bass guitar player for a band in Finland. So before she moved to America, before she even met my grandpa, she was a singer, and her whole life she was too. So
does that mean you're a singer? Did you inherit that from grandma?
I don't know if I'm good, but I've taken lessons. I've tried to be better. I do enjoy singing. And
you did encourage me to take lessons.
I do.
Because I actually like it in the shower. Yeah. Just other ears don't like it that much.
And that's how it was for me. And this is going to be a lot of rabbit holes, but I always loved singing. And in high school, something changed with my voice when your voice is changing and whatnot. And I just had like the worst break in my voice. And so I would sing in the shower. I would like go be at home and I'd be like, I feel like I'm decent. Like I've got good pitch. Like I can have power to it. And the second I would sing in front of other people, it would just like, it was like a creaking like mouse. Like it was bad. And I would be so embarrassed because I'd like show up at auditions totally ready to go. And it would just like come out like, and I had a voice teacher in high school and like she tried some things, but I couldn't really like break through on it. And it was actually like, in high school, like if you're a theater kid, if you're a choir kid, like you want to be the best. And so much of your identity is wrapped up your participation in those extracurriculars and stuff. And I just wasn't like aligning in my head with where I thought I actually was with how I was showing up. And so I had a couple of voice teachers, and then fast forward, I graduated college and was just kind of like, let me see if I can't figure this out. Like it's still a thing. I still would love to sing. It was kind of like you, where it's like, nobody likes to hear it, but I love to do it. So like, where's the disconnect here? And I found a great voice teacher here in Utah, and she was just like such a doctor about it. Like she knew, like there was no like, you're a good singer, you're a bad singer. It was just so like, here's how you do it. And like, I can see exactly what's going on with your voice, and you actually just don't have enough breath. And that's why your break is like collapsing right there. And it was like, oh, this is how much breath I really need to have. And like, I wouldn't say that like I would be comfortable like singing right here, right now, but I like have so much more confidence where I don't feel like there's just this like two different worlds I'm living in. One where I'm a bad singer, one where I'm a good singer, and that sort of thing. So, okay, that was a tangent. Back to my mother.
Yeah.
Okay, my mother is a writer. She's written a couple nonfiction books and a fiction book. And I'd say like, she's a fantastic writer and whatnot, but just the way that she approached, and I'd say this is the same with my dad too, the way she approached life was just art. Like our home, the way she crafted things, the way that she talked about the world, she loves symbols, and she loves just like finding meaning in things in her life and in the world. And that really like kind of trained me to like see the world with this other level of dimension, where it's like, there's not just the experience that we have right here. There's just this other level of like, and you can call it spiritual. A lot of it was religious in my family, but like, it was just this extra level of like, what can we learn from this? What is the universe kind of trying to teach us? And that like, that more than like drawing classes or anything, like that is the training to become a creative and an artist, is being able to see that like, that other perspective and whatnot. So I really credit her for giving me that.
So you had that fostered from a young age.
Totally.
So you're kind of seeing the way that creativity can play a role, how it can shape and affect things.
Yeah.
So that maybe you don't have as many fears over doing that. Because I think when people don't, they tend to have more fear around it.
Yeah. And what's so interesting about that, so they were super encouraging of art when I was younger, like, and I think what's interesting about this is we like to nowadays kind of point to like, this is, my parent did this and this is why I am the way that I am. And my parents are really great at being like separating that out of like, yeah, like that makes sense. But also like, there was a level of you coming this way. Mm-hmm. And I think that kind of first hit, there was one experience I had, and this ties into what you just said about the environment of creativity. When I was in preschool, I had this preschool teacher that she would draw like the same picture for me, this princess and a prince, every time I went, and I would color it. And I remember like one time going home from school and like I didn't have class or something like that. And I asked my mom to do it, and she just could not get it. It was not the same picture. And it really, I just like was so frustrated about that. And because I just had this vision in my head of this beautiful picture that I was then going to color and everything was going to be great. And I think like they really nurtured like giving me the tools. My dad had like his architecture office. It was like kind of detached from our house, and they weren't using the basement, and that became my art studio. And they were really good about like nurturing that and like making me believe I could be an artist and that sort of thing. But there was always this like little thing in my head where I would get out all the paints, I would get out all the things, I would have this picture. I remember one time I was like, I'm gonna make this beautiful painting of Mary and Jesus, and it's just gonna be like, I was like 7 or 8. I had no formal training, and I was like, and it's gonna be Da Vinci level, like it's gonna be great. And I like got out all the paints, and that was like fun and exciting. And the second I just started drawing, I was like, this is not working. And I just like put everything back. And I'd say that like continued in my like art career. Like there was little flare-ups of that. Like I would get drawing books from the library to learn how to like realistically draw. And I remember I'd spend so much time doing it, and I was so proud of it. And I like remember putting up the first realistic face that I had drawn in my locker at school. And this kid like flew by, you know how 7th graders are. And he just flew by and he looked at it and he like squinted his eyes and he was like, is that supposed to be a human or a face? Because it doesn't look like one.
Oh, no.
And then he just like left. And
oh, brutal for a 7th grader to hear that.
Because like they have no tact, but it's like there's an honesty behind it that you feel. Mm-hmm. And I think it was always just this like, I love the idea of art and creativity, but it was such a painful experience for me. Like from being young to like up until honestly just a year or so ago, and we can talk more about that. But like it was like, because it was so painful, it was hard to develop my artistic voice and identity. It was hard for me to like own the fact that I was an artist. Like that's kind of a thing in artist circles and stuff. And you'll hear it around where someone will be super talented, but it'll be really hard for them to be like, I am an artist. And it's like, that was me like a year or 2 ago, where it was just really hard to own that identity, because it was a painful experience. I felt like I didn't know who I was, that I was just like kind of copying stuff and whatnot. So
I think a lot of us fall into that, right? Like when you talk about the drawing thing, I mean, there's a degree to which I can relate. I think we've talked before, but when I was younger, I did like to draw, and I loved Disney at that time too. No surprise. And I would either ask for my birthday, or I would save up the little amount of allowance I would get for mowing the lawn, and I would buy these how to draw Disney books. They were like this big at the time. And it was
Are those the ones with like the step-by-step?
Yes.
Like those are so fun.
And so I loved it because then I felt like I could draw. I felt like, oh my goodness, I can do this. But I was really just
memorizing
the
steps.
Like, oh, that's how it goes. Okay, that's what I need to do next. And then I would just redo it and redo it and redo it until it could look exactly like that.
Yeah.
And in the art class that I had in junior high, I was just doing the same thing. I was just recreating something that somebody else did because I wanted it so badly to look good. And I didn't know how to unlock any kind of creativity to explore that myself.
Yes.
And then it just faded because I never found the joy in creating something that was authentic to me at all in that medium.
Yeah. And I think there's something about, and I don't know if it's cultural, I don't know if it's like being a kid or whatnot, but there's something about the clout of being able to make something look realistic and like have all your colleagues and peers and like be like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. Cause it's like, it is technical skill and mastery and expert hand-eye coordination. And there's so much craft there. But to me, that craft is so distinct from creativity. Yeah. And like together, craft and creativity, like maybe that's what art is. But like to me, I had abandoned creativity and maybe even just never nurtured it or really understood that it had value and that it could actually be what I wanted and how I wanted to make art. And like finding that is what allowed me to actually consistently show up as an artist rather than just saying like, oh, I'm an artist.
And even though, you know, when we talk generally speaking about artists, I think we're talking about more of those types of mediums of drawing and painting and that kind of creativity. For me, art started to show up more in the form of theater and performing.
Yes.
Because I really took to that. I loved it. And one of the things I loved about it is I could have a script, right? So there's that technical aspect, like here's this script, right? Here's what I'm supposed to say, figuring out how I wanted it to come across. And then even when I would do comedies, I loved it when suddenly you'd have to ad-lib. Somebody else forgets their lines, or you just feel like in the moment, this joke that you vary or decide to come up with is going to land, and then it does in front of a live audience. You're like, "Yep, this is my creative sweet spot." So that was where I gained like a real love for that form of creativity and art, which played a major role in me wanting to be an attorney, to be honest, and performing in court and kind of what that creativity can look like.
I love that because so much of the difficult process of art and creativity is having a like container in which to explore, and you have to put limitations on yourself. So I did a design minor in college, and in a lot of my design thinking classes and stuff, it was always like, what constraints, even if they're arbitrary, can we put on the system in order to make it like really create something beautiful and unique and interesting? And like, in theater, you've got the story, you've got stuff like that. But I don't know, it's just a really like, it's a fun thing to explore because I think when we talk about creativity, we talk about this kind of like expansive possibilities, infinity. And at times that's like really overwhelming for me. That shuts me down. And I think like early on when I hadn't figured out my medium, hadn't figured out my artistic voice, it was like so overwhelming to sit down with just a blank piece of paper and say, I'm going to be an artist and I'm going to show up, because like you just choose a style and then you have to be expert at that style, but then there's this other one that's interesting to you and whatnot. And like the amount of freedom it gave me to just like find a medium and find it, it's like the way I kind of explain it to people sometimes is it's like 0 plus infinity is infinity, but 0 to 1 is also infinity. And there's infinity within that space. And it's like almost a little bit more like you just have this like safe container that doesn't feel so much like chaos, but it has enough where it's still fun and like exciting.
I love that idea. Okay, so I'm with you there. So you say your minor was in art design.
Yeah.
And what was your major?
History.
Okay, so history major, and then what do you do from there? You graduate with the history and art design. What do you do?
Yeah. So just to take one step back, so talking about my dad, and it's my mom too, but like always have this like creative side and then this like analytical side or whatnot. And I think in high school, I started to realize that I like had this analytical side that I really liked. I liked physics. I loved history. I loved doing like textual analysis of like a primary source document and being like, what did this person really think in context? And I loved doing that. And I also loved just like the aesthetic quality of history, that just people's lives, and there's so much art and there's so much story and emotion in the past, and it's so fun to go into the past and see people acting just like we do and that sort of thing. And so when I did my degree, I actually wasn't super intentional about that decision. I didn't ever sit down and say, here's my list of majors, this is what I want to do. It just felt like the right move, and I wanted to get a design minor because I wanted to nurture my creative skills, and I knew that like I had been doing graphic design throughout high school and college, and I knew that like that was a good skill set to have technically to be able to like survive in the world, basically. And so when I got that history degree, I never thought about teaching. I never thought like that I would want to
Even though
teach.
that's a lot of people do that.
Yeah, that is what most people kind of want to do with their history degree. And I think now like there's some interest there, but I never thought about that. It was always just like, I want to use this degree to go build something and to exist in the real world. And like, I was really interested in like museums and like curatorial stuff. I did a really brief art curatorial internship at BYU Art Museum my senior year, and really loved that. I liked the idea of taking the learnings and helping people kind of like understand them in the real world and whatnot. And so I was a little lost, and I actually ended up graduating college 2020, COVID.
Oh my.
Yeah. So my last semester was, I moved
Totally
back
different
with my
than
parents.
anybody ever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which was good because I didn't want to walk, and it was kind of an excuse to like not do it. But it was actually really tough because
You didn't want to walk.
No.
How come?
I don't know. Sometimes ceremonial stuff like that, like the pomp and circumstance of it, feels like kind of arbitrary to me. Like to me, the whole experience like cannot be distilled down into that. And there's so much pressure in those moments to like feel like you have to like feel the whole experience. And I just like, I don't know. I don't work like that. I can't like turn it on like that. And so I'm always worried like there's this big event, and I like, this is why I'd be so scared to get like have a wedding, to be honest. Like this big event, and everybody's expecting you to like put all the emotional energy that this is symbolically representing, and you have to like show it. And if you don't, it's like, do you really care, or that sort of thing? And it's just, it's too much pressure. So I'd much rather just have my own little space. That's
fair. I didn't walk for undergrad.
Oh.
And it was because I was like, well, I know I'm going to law school. So I'm like, I'm celebrating
really.
not the end.
I like
so I was like,
that.
nah, I'm not going to go walk in that. This was just a step in where I got to go. I did walk at law school. Like, if you didn't, most law schools are small enough that like, it'd be weird if you didn't.
I know. I have to, we'll get back to this, but I'll have to think about my law school walking because it's in Hawaii, and I have.
Well, then for nothing else, you got to go to Hawaii. Like,
I know. I kind of want to go to Italy instead as like my end of law school trip, but
there you go.
Maybe I'll just do both.
Do both. Why not?
Exactly.
Life is short.
Yeah. So it was really tough because I think I had just done the degree. I actually like graduated. So I did 3 years because I was just like done with school and wanted to get out. And so I figured out how to like kind of accelerate it. But I kind of just thought some stuff would land in my lap because that's just kind of how things had happened throughout college and whatnot. And it like was getting really close. It was fall. Oh, I took the LSAT. I was thinking about going to law school actually the fall of my senior year. And this is like so embarrassing to admit, but I feel like it'll resonate with people. I took the LSAT, I'd studied all summer, and I had gotten like a really good ACT score that honestly I didn't feel like I deserved. It felt like kind of a blip, but it gave me this expectation for like how I was going to do on the LSAT that just didn't end up playing out. And I looked at that score, and I could have taken it again, but I was just so burnt out. I had a lot of migraines that fall. I was like doing my final classes and whatnot, and I looked at that score and I was like, it was Harvard or nothing. And that score's not going to get me into Harvard. And so I was like, maybe law school's not for me. And I just like put that dream away. And we'll come back to that. But so when I graduated, it was tough. It was COVID. It was just weird. Like, wasn't clear who was hiring. There was different levels of like being able to go into office or not office or whatnot. And I had all this like professional experience in design, but I had this history degree, and I ended up like, I was going a little bit stir crazy, living at my parents' house for 3 months with my brother, and I just feeling like a kid again. And I was like, I got to get out of here and start my life. And so I found a job working for a e-commerce brand here in Utah, doing graphic design, and worked with them for a while. And it was fun because because it was a small company, I got really involved in some of the marketing strategy on things, the content strategy, really helped kind of take their email marketing to the next level. They were doing clothing launches every 6 weeks. And so we would do like the whole creative direction behind the brand for that launch. And it was really fun and exciting, but it wasn't a great fit for, I think, where I wanted to end up. I loved the creativity behind it, but it kind of just lacked that, like, I think Kent, who was on your podcast recently, he was like talking about his career, and it doesn't pull on the heartstrings to sell swimsuits. It just doesn't. Like, you can have story behind it and meaning, but it doesn't. Sure. It's not that. So I was looking kind of for a new gig, ended up starting with they were a mental health clinic network here in Utah, and they had just been bought by a Canadian company, and they specialized in basically innovative mental health treatments. And so that included ketamine assisted psychotherapy, and that this was right at the beginning. So this was like, we called it like the psychedelic renaissance at the time. It seems kind of funny now because it's kind of like crashed. It was a little bit like the cannabis industry, but there was so much energy in that space behind it. There were a lot of like retail investors getting involved, a lot of Canadian companies, and that the people that had bought us were some Canadian investors. And it was super exciting. I was little Mormon girl, this is a funny little anecdote. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I remember reading the job description for this position, and it's saying like psychedelic assisted therapies. And I kid you not, I went and looked up in the church handbook what the position of the church was on psychedelics, because I was like so worried that like I was just like breaking some, I don't know, some law or rule or whatnot. And pretty soon when I got in there, it was actually really cool for me from a history standpoint. So I worked as an assistant to the chief medical officer, and I basically I did anything and everything for him. I helped him prep his presentations. I did some just administrative stuff and whatnot. It was actually really cool because I started doing some ghostwriting with him and some marketing and content and stuff. And like, it actually like learning about the psychedelic industry and the history of how that's kind of developed in America, and like how so much of it was political, the war on drugs, the like kind of anti-hippie, anti-war movement, how that kind of like converged, but how it had begun from a very scientific standpoint. I remember one of the first projects I did that I just loved was I did like this like micro history, this like really zoomed in story about the discovery of LSD, basically. Not like the discovery, but the discovery of the psychedelic properties of LSD. And it had, I just like love diving into the history of that. And it also just opened up my world view, not just like the little Mormon girl thing. I think it opened up my worldview in just so many ways to just realize that I did have kind of a frame of that was a little bit more constrained, and just being able to like understand the context of this medicine that was really helping people, I think was really cool. And so I loved that work. It was really purpose driven. I ended up doing, because of my graphic design background, I got really involved in their marketing pretty early on. They were scrappy. They were trying to like look more resource than they were, and I was the person they put on the job to like make sure their marketing and their branding and everything was like up to snuff and really kind of competitive, and worked with a really great team there. And they ended up selling to a competitor couple years after that. And but it was fun. It was a ride. Like we really thought we were gonna like change the world, which maybe we did in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I mean, look, are they still going? I mean, they're still cruising along.
So they ended up, I think the company they sold to, I think they recently sold to another one. And I think that the industry is settled where a lot of the hype has left, which I actually think is really important, especially in the psychedelic space, because like so much of it was like, there's a lot here to unpack. But long story short, like you have just capitalism at odds with a lot of like indigenous traditions, at odds with like a lot of new age spirituality, and like the convergence of all of that was just a little bit ripe for kind of like a, what's the word, a splash in the pan or something like that. But I think it's settled now where like a lot of the research and stuff around psychedelics, things that were expected to get approval didn't, and it's kind of been like a reckoning, I think, for the industry to kind of take stock of like, how are we going to slow this down, be intentional about it. I still really believe in like the power of like these medicines and whatnot, but I think, I think it's good that the hype kind of blew up a little bit. I don't think people like profited as much from it as they wanted to, but I think that's actually really good because I think that intention is so important in the mental health space and in the psychedelic space in particular, just like intention with the medicine. And it's funny to think how you can kid yourself into seeing that there is like that intention's there when really it's profit motivated, or there's some ego, there's some desire for self-aggrandizement, which there's a lot in that space. And like, I think it was good to kind of blow that up a little bit because the medicine's still there. Psychedelics are still there. It'll be a slow like cultural shift. And I think a lot of that will be facilitated by just new pharmaceuticals that aren't mushrooms in the back of an alley, or I don't know, you know what I mean? Like kind of more of a medical approach to it. But yeah, it was, I will say like from a professional standpoint, like I feel like I gained in that 2 to 3 years that I was there, like a decade of professional experience. Like it was quick. My number one advice that I give like kids that are just out of school now is I'm like, go burn yourself out at a fun startup. Yeah.
Get those opportunities and experiences because, once you start getting entrenched into something and then it's harder to break free and harder to break from tradition or what you know and get pigeonholed into something early on in your career and explore.
Yeah, I will say like it's a little bit tough to go into a startup environment and burn yourself out because I feel like you get the curtain taken back on the world a little bit like young, where it's like one of my first experiences working at that company was like walking into a room, and I've told you this story before, but like on my first day, and I was just like, I was super young because I graduated early, and I was maybe 20 or 21, and walking into a meeting, and I was just sitting there like taking notes from my boss, and they were chatting about something, and the CEO is just like, Kirsten, like, what do you think about this? And it was taking that curtain back in a good way that actually I think gave me a voice in professional settings that like sometimes I feel like people don't get or feel like they deserve or earn until like 15 to 20 years into their career. And they like really nurtured that for me. And I think it was tough because it did set a standard for the next experiences where I think I showed up expecting like a level of consideration and like voice that like I don't think people were prepared to give like a young 20-something. But like I also think it was such an important standard because it showed me that like there is wisdom and experience and like craft that can be developed with years, but there's also first principles thinking, and there's an ability for anyone kind of regardless of their experience level to like come at a problem in a new way. And I learned to value that so much so that when I was in professional settings where that wasn't the case and where people weren't approaching that, I was like, one, I know it's possible because I had it. And so like, I'm not gonna stand for anything of like, oh, you're too young and you'll get there. Cause I'm like, no, I had it. Like, and two, just realizing the actual value of that from a scaling perspective and an efficiency perspective in a business, that you really have to have that humility to like, there's a necessity to clear chain of command and to hierarchy and stuff like that. But to have true collaboration and to really see even the people that work under you as like an equal and a peer is just, I think it's what companies need and to really like grow sustainably.
Well, I think there's a lot of value in leaders being willing to try to understand the issues and problems and opportunities that the other people in the organization know because it fits within what they're doing, right? Yeah. Like if one of the examples, and it's not with employees, but I think it's similar. I was just reading more about this new appointment of Josh D'Amaro as CEO. Yeah. And he's a Parks and Entertainment guy. Like that's what he's been doing, functioning there. And one of the things that I've heard a couple people talk about is that he has a habit of just going to the park, no badge, not with the private VIP tour, and just going in and walking and waiting in the lines, the full lines, not the lightning lane, the full lines, experiencing it with the people, see what the customers are experiencing, and then talking with the employees on the ground there, actually listening to them. Yeah. And I love that idea because, I mean, what better way to understand what the park experience is like than for the customers actually doing it and getting that firsthand and talking to your employees cast members, right, that are there operating in the park. And that just really connected with me. And I think it's a really good example of what leadership can do if they'll listen.
Yeah. And we've talked about this before, but I feel like resent is the biggest poison in an organization. In any relationship, honestly, resent, like there's that kind of concept, like if someone rolls their eyes, like it's warning signs, it's big danger. And I think that is the way as a leader that you help curb it, is by putting yourself on the level and the experience and the like willing to, like, some of my favorite leaders that I've worked with have amazing strategic perspective and experience, and they could like delegate and do it so well, but they and their people trust this, which I think is the important part. They get in the weeds enough that their people trust that they will do that when they need to. And their people trust that when they're making decisions about resourcing or decisions in general, that they understand the process enough, they understand the nitty-gritty pain points of actually doing the work and what that entails, that they trust the decisions that come from the leader. So I think it's good from like an emotional, like cultural perspective, but I also think it like, you need to trust that your leader has understands what it actually takes to do your job, and like really deep knowledge of that. I think is really, really useful for leadership.
Yeah, fair. So you've taken this journey of creativity. So let's kind of dive into a little bit more about that that creativity as kind of the topic or the main thing we want to visit with today. Yeah. So let me start here. Is what do you see as the biggest thing that people get wrong when it comes to creativity?
That distinction between the craft and creativity, I think, is really important. I've been a little bit turned off by like professional art spaces. And I think part of that comes from, there's a little bit of gatekeeping around what good art is. And I was even just kind of looking at some Instagram commentary recently. It was from a curator here in Utah, and she's a really fantastic representational artist. So that means she's like, does people and humans. It's not abstract shapes or whatnot. My work is collage, and it is very abstract. It was interesting because there's always been a little bit, especially in the last like 100 years, a little art history bit, but like when modernism and postmodernism kind of came into the art space, and this is my very amateur, just anthropological take on it. This isn't any art history approved statement, but like it was really hard for the art world and the world in general to kind of accept modernism and postmodernism and abstraction, because it felt like it didn't have that same craft. Like one of my favorite pieces is Michelangelo's David, statue David in Italy, because to me it is like, that was a ruined piece of marble, and he was like 25 or 26 when he did that. Like marble is so hard. So many, like there was a couple of artists that had already tried it, and like it speaks to a level of like just technical mastery and precision that like to me is art, not because it produced something that's beautiful, but because like that level of focus and intensity and vision is creativity. And but the world was really used to that style of art. And I think when like modernism, postmodernism, and people started putting a urinal in a museum or a banana on the thing, or Jackson Pollock and stuff, like people just looked at it, and to them they didn't see that technical craft, that ability to take reality and mirror it on a canvas. And there's so much behind those like modernist movements and whatnot, but like one of my takes on it is, it's like back to my point about that, like that other universe, that other world of abstraction. I think for me personally, I won't speak for all the other artists, but for me, the abstract space is my ability to actually bring into physical reality that other world of emotion, that other world of symbolism and abstract thought, and all the things that we can't articulate, all that energy that we can't articulate. To me, it is representational, but it's representational of the world that we can't see. And there's a lot of like insecurity around accepting that, at least like for myself too. It is really hard because an abstract piece that kind of like, unless you have the story behind it, unless you take some time with it, if it doesn't look like something that people are used to, it doesn't sell prints. Like it doesn't like end up as like something on the wall. People are really for the most part, like the mainstream, they like to see what they've seen before and what they've been told is good. And representational art has a little bit more familiarity. There's a little bit less of a bridge to divide there. And that makes abstract artists insecure about things. But it was interesting, back to what I was saying, is this representational artist was like actually talking about her own insecurity about being a representational artist, that like from the abstract perspective, a lot of abstract artists look at what she's doing and they say, it's derivative. It just looks like what everyone else is doing. Like you're just recreating reality and not adding extra meaning to it. And she's like, no, like this is me trying to build that layer of the unseen thing onto reality as I see it and then kind of deliver it in a package. And I think there's that tension within the art space that like really is rooted in so much insecurity. And so you ask, like, what's the biggest thing that people get wrong about creativity? It's insecurity. It's like people feeling like if what they produce isn't accepted by the world or even acceptable by themselves, like it wasn't worth it. And what are they even doing? And for me, breaking that was so difficult. I think I had such an identity crisis for like 6 months to a year. But also it was only 6 months to a year of an identity crisis. And that is not that much time in the long scheme of things. And so it was so important for me to go down that journey to break that insecurity and to actually get comfortable just loving the art and loving doing it for the sake of just doing it. Like, no, I had to stop caring what it would look like at the end. Like I really did. And for me, it was actually like breaking the hold that representational art had on me, that like I thought that the picture of the Virgin Mary holding the baby Jesus was the epitome of art. And like if I couldn't do that, I wasn't an artist. I had to break that and just be like, how do I actually want to like show up on this paper? How do I want to, like, is this really fun for me? Like, is this an enjoyable hour of my life, or am I resenting this? And like that sort of thing. So
with that, with people you wanted to think more about creativity in their lives and unlocking it, how do you see the distinction between the experience of creating versus the outcome of what you created?
Yeah. When you say, how do you see the difference? Like the feeling, maybe re-articulate the question.
So what's...
Okay, this is a good question because I actually think it depends. And I come at this from the perspective of art for me is creativity. But I love that the distinction of craft and creativity is so important to me because I also I come from a design background. My dad's an architect. Like there is so much value in this world to good craft. And I think like everybody has, it's hard because everyone has different tastes. But there are certain objective rules of symmetry and the way things work that actually make communication simpler or communicate different things. And so taste is there, but there are some of these kind of objective things. And I think the world needs that. I think the world needs that in architecture. I think the world needs that in graphic design. I think the world needs that in communication of certain ideas that need to have mainstream impact and appeal. And I think, so it's about goals. It's about separating those goals. And for me personally, I think my experience with perfectionism and with the pain of trying to live up to this vision, it just I got really real with myself that I didn't enjoy that. Part of the reason why I switched from a marketing design into going to law school and stuff is because I didn't want to do that anymore. To me, that wasn't enjoyable art. I think it's necessary. I think it's great. I really admire people that can do craft really, really well. But I also, it just wasn't enjoyable for me. And so it was kind of saying, okay, that's not enjoyable, but is there a space where creativity and art, I can make this enjoyable for me? And to me, that was shifting it from the mindset of I just don't even think about what happens to the piece at the end. I don't think about the finished picture or whatever. It's literally just when I'm working on a piece, it's like a workout. It's when you have a workout, you never put your workout on the wall. I mean, some people do, this was a good one, sure. But it's a process. It's a development. It's an experience.
As you talk about that, one of the things that it makes me think of is what's been popularized these days, which is a flow state, the desire to get into a flow state.
Yes.
And guess the satisfaction that comes when someone's able to truly find that flow state. And being in flow state, like in and of itself, that process of doing that is amazing. It's satisfying, is great for people to experience.
Yes. And I actually think that some of the tension, so the AI stuff in the art world, this is just like gone head to head. And I think it's because people don't have this distinction in their head between the craft and the creativity, because, and people can yell at me for this, but like AI is going to get ridiculously good at the craft. And like, to be quite frank, like if you break down what creativity actually is, from like our ability to synthesize novelty, everything, like the mechanisms behind creativity in humans can also be replicated in machines. But the creative experience, not creativity as in the production of ideas, but the creative experience that I just described of like doing the reps, going to the gym in a creative, that is something that literally no machine can take from you. And I think I have a lot of frustration in the space looking at artists who are so, and I get it, there's incomes attached to it, there's money attached to it, and those are real conversations that we need to have. But like a lot of times I look at that stress and that anxiety that artists have about AI, and I think like I wonder if even before AI, there wasn't more of an opportunity for them to like lean into like really the love of the art. And I don't want to like diss anyone and say that they didn't love the art before, but when we talk about kind of the motivations for creating it, it gets really messy as an artist when those motivations are tied up in your own like financial security and your own stability. It gets really hard to produce art that feels joyful. It might be like 70% joyful. If you're really lucky as an artist, it is like 95% joyful, but it's like there is a world where it is like 100% joyful. Nobody is like, there's no reason you need to make this, and no machine can take that away from you, no like income things. And I want people, not just artists, but everybody to be able to like access that flow state, access that creativity. And that's what my passion is like in my own art, but it's also just like something I like to cultivate just in general, like professionally.
I mean, ultimately it's part of the core of how we learn. If we don't have the experience to do it, then we don't learn. And can a machine, can AI, produce these things that, again, according to the craft, are, practically perfect or whatever? Sure, we rob ourselves of our own personal growth when we don't put any work into it. When we just say, AI, go give me this, and it's there, I didn't learn anything from that. Now, what I think we're going to start to see, though, is what we have already, which is people being able to take AI and craft AI. So part of the art or the creativity could come in how they utilize AI to create something different, something new. So they are learning in that process of harnessing the power of AI. Now, ultimately what that looks like, who knows?
Yeah. Well, and I started to see it in like the design space and world, and there's a lot of controversy here. And I know there's like environmental impacts of AI that also needs to be addressed, but like there's kind of this battle, like people that are more pro AI, especially in creative spaces, it's like, this is another tool. This is a chisel. This is another thing. And like the reality is that is actually, it's so accurate. The times that I have used AI in my design work, like it is an efficiency tool, but I actually like have quite a bit of fun. It's not so much fun that I would ever like to do that more than I like to do art. I think it'll just be like the act of like prompting and synthesizing and like really kind of massaging something there and then taking it into your own space. Like it is kind of fun and experimental, and it opens up possibilities where it's like, I think we need to have a little bit of humility as humans, that like what we are doing, like, yes, we can synthesize good things and we can synthesize our own experience and create some merged artistic product that is great. But like a machine has access to way more data and way more things, and it can build those like bridges in a way that like, I think some humans have really good skill set for that. But I think it also just like, it causes us to look at the world differently and to look at different styles differently. And I think it's fun. I think it's exciting. And like, let's talk about the real issues rather than making it a moralistic thing.
Yeah.
Like there's moralistic things within it, but let's break it down and actually talk about it rather than just saying that AI is the enemy of art, because I just don't think that's true at all.
Yeah. Well, and it's going to be, I mean, the reality is AI is not going to go away.
Yes.
And like many things in life, we can fight against it, but it's going to be a losing battle.
Yeah.
If somebody wants to fight against AI, it's just they're going to lose that battle.
Acceptance doesn't mean that you are conceding the things that are important to talk about.
Yeah.
Acceptance just means that you like have the power to not be so existentially drained by the conversation because you feel like if you can't stop it, you're done. Just
you lose hope, right? Like if you take that stance, you lose hope that this thing can be utilized and we can make improvements to it and we can make improvements to our lives and still learn with what's coming.
Yeah.
So let's tie in now. Let's move to our Ratatouille.
Yes.
So here's what we'll do is I want you to set the stage of the movie.
Okay.
Just in case there's somebody watching who lives under a rock and hasn't seen it. No, I'm just kidding. Maybe there's some people who haven't, but try to give kind of the overarching story the whole way.
Yes.
And then let's go break down some really interesting things when it comes to this idea of creativity.
Yes.
This movie's so on point for that.
It is, and especially the idea of craft too, because like French cooking is like craft. Okay, so story is we've got Remy, who's a rat, and he loves cooking. He was born with just this sensitivity to food, and he loves it, and he goes and steals food. And one particular time, he gets a little risky and ends up basically getting separated from his family. The whole, what did you call their rat pack? Like, what's the term for a group of rats?
Colony, I think.
Colony,
it's a rat
that's
colony.
right. Yeah. So their whole colony basically gets dispersed. We have like a little.
And before that, so he's at this where they live. They live in the attic of this house, this old lady's house, right?
Yeah.
And he gets exposed to Chef Gusteau.
Oh yes,
right?
That's right. Okay.
Where he sees the program on where Chef Gusteau's a very famous French cook, and then the book.
Yes.
The book
and
is
what's
there.
the line, the famous line?
Yeah, the book is called Anybody Can Cook.
Yeah.
And that's like Chef Gusteau's like motto, right?
Yes. And as a rat, that really resonated.
It did, right? For sure with him.
Because he's a body. He's a rat body. So there's like a flushed away moment, basically. There's a lot of like rats and sewers in like the early 2000 Disney Pixar's era. But he ends up kind of getting flushed away and basically onto the streets of Paris. And he's separated from his family. And here's an important point. I know we're going to dive into this, but I just want to flag this that caught me while I was watching is like, you see that separation from his family when he's still with his family. Like you see this like, he's not like the other rats. He really isn't. Like, they don't care too much, and he does. And then you get the physical separation from his family. And he has a cookbook with him and ends up, I'm a little bit blurry on some of these details, but he ends up at Gusteau's restaurant.
That's exactly right. Suddenly he realizes when he comes out of the sewers, because he's flushed away, and he comes out and he goes onto your roof and suddenly realizes like he's literally right at Chef Gusteau's restaurant. He can see it right there.
And I think he's just like watching, or he just wants to like just be there. And this poor little sap, Linguini, who just got hired, his mom had some relationship with Gusteau. He just gets hired to be kind of a busboy. And this poor little sap, Linguini, is like, he accidentally dumped something into the soup and then he tries to like fix it. And Remy's watching this whole thing in like horror, knowing that the soup now tastes disgusting. And so like, he can't help but try to fix the soup. And so he like beautiful like animation. He's throwing all these things into the soup, and definitely relived that like 10 times as a child, like trying to like be Remy. But then Linguini catches him, and he sees him, and Linguini thinks the soup is horrible because like a rat's messing with it. But it like goes out and is served, and it's like the best thing that this restaurant has seen since Gusteau. But everyone thinks Linguini did it, and I'm going to get a little bit less detailed here for the sake of time, but. Essentially, like, Linguini becomes the star chef, but he does it with the aid of Remy pulling his hair underneath his chef's hat. And there's kind of some evil forces at work. The chef that took over after Gusteau, he keeps seeing the rat everywhere, and he like becomes like a little obsessed with the idea that this rat is kind of pulling the strings or whatnot. And there's some interpersonal dynamics, but what's kind of the main conflict moment?
Well, so one of the things is that Linguini, as it turns out, is actually Chef Gusteau's son.
Yes.
And so now he gets to take over the restaurant, and the chef that was there gets ousted. And so Linguini's getting all this pub, but what had happened before Gusteau passed away is he had 5 stars. So they didn't use the 3-star Michelin, right? I think we're trying to avoid that. So it was 5 stars was the scale. And they had lost a star because Anton Ego, who's the very famous critic apparently here, had come in and he hated the idea of anyone can cook. Like he hated the motto, he hated Gusto, gives a scathing review and they lose a star. And Gusto falls into a deep depression and ends up passing away. And then they lose another star, so now they got 3 stars. So when Linguini starts to get all this pub, Anton Ego comes and announces himself. I'm gonna come review your restaurant again, thinking he's just gonna slam them again, right? That's what he's gonna do. So now that sets the stage for like, what's Linguini gonna do? And Linguini and Remy are kind of having this conflict, right? About like, Linguini's not fully appreciating what Remy does. Remy wants to always have control over what's happening with it because he knows the cooking. And thankfully they kind of come together and decide to create this beautiful dish, which is really interesting to the dish that it is.
Yeah, and it completely changes Anton Ego forever. Yeah.
Which is, of course, the dish is Ratatouille. Yeah. Which, I mean, I had no idea what it was when I first watched it.
Have you made Ratatouille before?
I've never made it.
I've got a recipe that's really good.
I've never had it.
It's like the French country stew version, not the fancy, layered sort of thing. It's delicious. I love it.
Yeah, because and what it does is, and why it was so brilliant for Remy to do this is apparently it's a peasant food. That's the way they said it in the movie. But it connected with Ego, where he has this flashback to childhood and being served this dish. Yeah. And he forgot that he actually loved food. That's why he became a critic in the first place.
Yeah. I think it's so interesting because Anton Ego, like, he's a character for a reason. Like, there are so many people like that in the art space. So many people. And that's why the art space gets a lot of, like, flack, because it's that, like, that kind of level of pretension. But back to my point about insecurity, it's like, there's some child under there that just wants some experience with reality that reality is not presenting, and I think that shows up as pretension and criticism in people later in life, because like I think Anton, like, he's not an artist, they never talk about that, but like his craft is enjoying food. And is like enjoying it with other people and is celebrating it. And like, I think there's a little bit of dissatisfaction. We don't see his backstory at all, but like you can imagine like people trying to like live up to that standard that he had, that like he was just never able to like fully have that experience again, right? And it's cool to see how that just takes him right back. And like you see him emerge as like who he really is. I just think that's the best redemption story.
Yeah, it's a terrific one. And as part of this process, there's a few quotes that I just think are really interesting that I want to talk with you about and kind of get your take on. One of those is after Remy is in with Linguini and they're making some great stuff. So we haven't hit the full conflict yet. It's working well. Part of it is after Remy got separated from his family, then suddenly they reconnect. They realize like, oh my goodness, we found each other. And his dad finds out that he's working with a human. Like, how could you work with a human? And he takes him and shows him all this rat poison and stuff. And that is really interesting exchange where his dad says, basically talking about why he can't do it, why he can't be friends with humans. He says, this is the way things are. You can't change nature. And Remy's response, which is just so good here. He says, change is nature, Dad, the part we can influence. And it starts when we decide. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, this is an interesting one for me. You got a little glimpse of stubborn Kirsten in like my early childhood story, but like that part of me that's been like I've always been a nothing is impossible kind of person. I remember distinctly wandering around my backyard as a kid, and I was with my brother, and my brother and I were like thick as thieves, and he was like dissing one of my cool like treehouse ideas or something I had, and I remember being like, no, let's do it, and then saying something like, you know, if you think about it, like really like nothing is actually impossible. Like you just have to like figure out how to do it. And that has like been embodied my whole life. And so the idea of change to me has always been like built into, it's like, but I think in the past few years, I've had some like personal experiences with relationships and whatnot, where it's like kind of shown the shadow of that side, where it's like things that, it's the rat poison. It's the like, no, people are going to show up in a certain way. And that like really that kind of, I don't want to call it a temptation because I think it is reality kind of staring me in the face, has like come back to be like, there are situations that are not changeable. And like, maybe there would be some perfect world where if these variables lined up just right, they would. And it's really forced my perspective to shift from this like nothing is impossible, I can change anything, I can change anyone, it's just the right amount of manipulation, to kind of Remy's point of like what was it? Like change is nature?
Change is nature, the part that we can influence.
Yes.
And it starts when we decide.
It's looking at it as more of a flow, that like there are certain things in this world that will give. And that like what you get to decide is to have hope that like you will find down that river the things that give and bring you in the direction that you need to. And in this story, it's Linguini taking a chance on him. It's Colette, is that her name?
Yeah.
Eventually taking a chance on him. It's Anton Ego. Yeah, maybe the rat poison guy, like he's always going to think that it's, or the chef. The chef is always going to think that this isn't valid or that sort of thing. Like there are certain people that you can't do that. But like when you look at like the fact that not everybody is going to allow you to change, but that the world itself will allow you to change, that allows you to just kind of flow through and just find what gives and then go down that path. But if you stop, you're never going to find what gives and you're never going to end up at the end of the path, right?
Yeah, you're exactly right. We can't stop it. We have to make that conscious choice. It's when we, like it says, it's when we decide. That's when it starts. We've got to decide, and then we can try to use our influence to help the flow go in a different direction, something that's different.
And it's risky. Like it's totally so risky. There's rat poison. You're going to run up against people who won't give. Yeah. And you're going to feel like you're stuck on that river. But like it is your decision to have hope and faith that you will find the people that do and that like catch your vision. And
because like in the story, it I mean, obviously sounds absurd, right? Having a rat be a great cook and to help Linguini be a great cook. And it certainly is, right? However, the idea that we would never run into something absurd is not true, because of course we do. We will run into people who think we can't do something. And it's so absurd to say that we couldn't. But if we're willing to take that chance, if we're willing to try to put it into action, then we really can, notwithstanding what doubters might say, because we can't give in to the absurdity of people that doubt us.
Yeah.
So another one I want to get your take on, which to me epitomizes the whole show, right? It's exactly what we're talking about. And it's at the end, once Ego eats the ratatouille, his perception has changed, and he writes a new review about the brilliance of this little chef, right, which happens to be a rat. And he says, "In the past, I've made no secret of my disdain for Chef Gusteau's famous motto, 'Anyone can cook.' But I realize only now do I truly understand what he meant. Not everyone can become a great artist, but a great artist can come from anywhere." So, what meaning do you pull from that?
It's interesting because with art, because of the starving artist motif, I don't think that there's like a lot of restriction on the like I don't think society looks at artists or visual artists or things like that generally and says like, because you came from X background, you aren't capable of producing the craft. I actually think it's kind of the opposite in a lot of ways, where it's like, wow, you've had so much struggle in your life. Like you've had this position, lack of privilege, like that is such, like this is your way to like have privileges to be able to create art and that sort of thing. So I think what's interesting about that is it's not like so much when we kind of think about marginalized groups or whatnot, it's almost like the way that we think about ourselves and the restrictions we place on ourselves about what we can be and what we're not. I go back to that like thing I said about people finding it really hard, even if they have creative skills and crafts, to just own that they're an artist. I think like as I've been more open about my artistic pursuits in a professional context, it has been so shocking to me how many people I have started to like who come talk to me and they don't talk about my professional things or whatnot. They just want to talk about art, like if I mention it. And usually if they do, I've started to realize that they have some past, just like you. They'll start saying like, yeah, I actually did this for a while. And I have just met so many professional, everyday individuals who like had some creative thing and they aren't taking it seriously for themselves. And I don't mean that everybody should go out there and learn how to like sell their art and make a living off their art. I don't mean that. What I mean is that like, for some reason, there's something in their head that doesn't allow them to like feel like they can have that as a hobby or an identity or anything. And maybe it's a little bit of like our productivity culture and whatnot, is like, if I can't monetize this, turn this into a side hustle, that sort of thing. Like, especially when you're actually creating a product, like exercise is different. You can go out on a hike and feel like you don't need to monetize that. But when you're like creating something, it's really hard, at least just what I've seen in my circles, for people to feel like that's worth it just for the sake of doing it. And let me tie this back to the quote itself a little bit more. It's not, can you read the second part of the quote again?
Yeah, he says, not everyone can become a great artist, but a great artist can come from anywhere.
Yes, and there was an earlier quote in the movie too where Gusteau says something, and it's not about the craft. It's not about the technical mastery, because I really think you can teach people a lot. There's, especially with art, it's not like basketball, right? Like, I'm never going to be able to dunk something, but like with art, there's very few physical limitations that prevent that. What Gusteau says earlier is like, it's something about fear that like prevents you from being great. And I think we focus so much on the great part of like, that there's that line in Little Women, the newest Little Women, where Amy, I really relate to her. She's like, I want to be great or nothing. And it's like not realizing that great means integration and wholeness with yourself and a sense of confidence and security and just like joy in the everyday being. Like, that's what being a great artist is. It's being able to express your emotions and ideas thoughtfully and to like show up with integrity and confidence. Like, that is greatness. What is David's Michelangelo, Michelangelo's David, that is great. That's a great product, but that's not like greatness as an artist. And like, that comes from overcoming the fear.
I'd written down a few quotes that I thought were interesting that I think fit well here. Rick Rubin, you may know Rick Rubin, right? Very famous music producer. He's got some really interesting things.
Yeah, good book on creativity.
One they said was, the audience comes last. Another, the work exists to teach you something. And another, art is not about what others think, it's about what you discover. And I think it's that, right? Like, maybe when we think about a great artist, maybe the greatness is in just what you discover about yourself. Because if you are willing to engage in creativity so that you can discover something about yourself that makes you better, happier, to me, that's great. Because we want to have happy, joyful lives. And if we can create something that even just impacts one or two other people, that's also great. In positive ways, right?
There was a podcast I listened to about a year ago that like really shifted my perspective on things. And it was like, she literally said, I think, like, shift your perspective so your goal is integration, not greatness. And I think that is the same parallel as 0 plus infinity and 0 to 1, is that like, to the extent in your life that you can feel whole and integrated, regardless of what you've done from like a professional award standpoint or number of works sold or number of shows had, like, to the extent that you can feel that same energy, like in your day-to-day, regardless of that, like, that's just joy. That's just happiness. Like, I think people don't understand how much access that they have to just like feeling good day to day, that like we outsource so much to like some vague visionary future.
Yeah. I think taking time to unlock some of these things, even if it's just as a hobby, can unlock quite a bit more joy and happiness. And I'll say too, for me, I mean, I think art can come in just so many different ways. We've obviously been talking again a lot about art in the form of, visual, drawing or painting or visual stuff. But somebody's art can be, something totally different. I mean, our billing clerk here talks to me about how she doesn't even know how to turn on her TV. She never watches TV because she plays a piano and for herself. Like, and maybe her daughter, I think she's still got one daughter still in the home, and she might be hearing, but she's playing it for herself. Or she decides to knit something or create something, and she's doing it not for these awards or accolades, but she finds joy in the process of what she's doing as she is creating something. And I just think there's a lot of wisdom in that we could do less this, right? I guess for those who are just listening audio, scrolling, right? Less scrolling, and a little bit more creating. So let's move to our this or that segment. Okay. So this or that again. Like I always tell everybody, be prepared to defend your choices
school,
here, because there are some right or wrong answers here. Not really.
Okay.
Cooking alone or cooking with a group?
Cooking alone.
Cooking alone.
Yes.
Okay.
I like feeding people.
Yeah.
But cooking, and maybe it's just growing up, we cooked a lot in my family and whatnot, but the most stressful moments in my life, I feel like, were those times in the kitchen where like there's too many cooks in the kitchen and you're timing things with everybody, and it's just like the emotions are running high, and it just kills the joy for me. I love though, like that was actually in college. My stress relief was I would spend 2 hours making a dinner for myself after class. Like, didn't matter how much homework I had. It was just like, and I haven't done it as much, but yeah, I think it's just really soothing to like, and sometimes even just to know that you're the only one that's going to eat it, because then there's no pressure. It's like, if it's not good, it's
not good, I'll throw it away.
Yeah, exactly.
That's totally fair. Okay, following a recipe or cooking creatively?
Ooh, I go back and forth on this one because it's really hard for me to meal plan in such a way that I don't feel like I'm wasting like half my fridge when I like buy ingredients. So usually what I'll do is I'll like have one recipe a week that I want to make that's like something kind of new and different and exciting, and then I'll just kind of ad lib the rest of them. And that'll just be, I eat kind of pretty basic stuff, like a protein and a grain and a vegetable sort of thing, but it's enough fun and it's easy from a meal prep perspective to just have one, and then that'll usually last me a few days because I'm living alone.
It probably comes as no surprise since I was talking about how I did art or how I used to draw, but I'm a follow recipe. I don't know cooking well enough. I don't understand flavors and the way they work together. That like, let me follow a recipe and I'll make sure I follow it exactly, and so it should come out like the recipe says. But I have no creativity when it comes to cooking because I just haven't done it enough to hone any kind of craft or understand more about it to be better at it.
I'd say if it's like a weird, like I'm not good with Asian flavors, like I don't recognize them well enough. So if there's like specialty sauces or things like that, Italian's a little bit easier for me to ad lib, but I'll always end up accidentally like curdling my cream, or I don't know, like having too much acidity in the sauce, or I don't know. But yeah.
Those things can happen. Okay, rats or mice?
I'm gonna say mice because they seem cuter and sweeter, but I've actually heard rats are quite intelligent and make good pets. I actually am really scared of any animal that's smaller than me. That's always been a fear. Like
interesting.
Giant rhino or lion or horse, like
so
great, but like small animals, maybe it's like I can't control them. I don't know where they're gonna go.
Yeah, for sure. Soup or pasta?
Ooh, soup. I love pasta, but like soup gives you that same feeling of comfort, but you don't like feel like you need to fall asleep after it.
Yeah, you eat pasta, it's like nap time.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's go, we can take a little siesta.
Yeah.
Paris or New York?
Okay, so I've never been to New York, but I have been to Paris. And I will say that like my Paris trip was like a day long. My parents were living in England at the time. We took a red-eye flight in the morning and a red-eye flight back home, and it was a little bit miserable. I don't like to travel like that, like really condensed.
A day is it in Paris.
Yeah, so I raised...
And on the back of like red-eye, that's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, so I raised you London.
Okay, goodness gracious. Okay, based off some things I heard earlier, a couple other this or that's that I came up with.
Okay.
Actually, no, we're gonna go to rapid fire because these are rapid fire questions. I apologize.
Amazing.
These are gonna be part of the rapid fire, but I'm gonna do these ones first.
Okay.
Favorite era in U.S. history?
1920s.
Okay. Favorite museum?
I don't remember the name of it. I went to Vienna a couple years ago, and the Vienna Secession Museum in Vienna. It's my favorite art movement, early 1900s.
There you go.
It's great stuff. Look it up.
Okay, I love it. Favorite Disney movie?
I like Tangled a lot. That one resonated. She's an artist. She's chaotic.
She sure is. She sure is.
She's a dreamer.
Totally a dreamer.
Yeah.
I love Tangled. Favorite Disney song?
When Will My Life Begin from Tangled.
Another, yeah.
I could sing it right now.
Totally. Let's do it. No, I'm just kidding. We won't make you. We won't put you on the spot. Favorite Disney princess?
Rapunzel.
Okay, I was going to say, it's going to be, if I'm going to guess, I'm going to say Rapunzel.
It is. I think I had a little hyperfixation on Tangled when I was in 7th grade that just like, it's just got a soft spot in my heart.
Totally fair. Favorite Disney hero?
Like we're talking men?
No, they can be women. There's some great women heroes.
That was so.
I mean, I guess they're heroines. I guess they're heroines.
Yeah.
Is that what we call it?
Oh, let me think about
the generic when it's meant to apply to both. We'll call it a hero.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't actually know if I'm super impressed by any of the princes from a hero perspective. So let me think about this for a second.
You're not impressed by Hercules? He's
actually,
no good.
I do. I'd say I'm more impressed by Meg. I'm not gonna lie.
Meg's awesome.
Yeah.
You kidding me?
Say she's got more
She's
heroine
fantastic.
energy. I'd say her, or the one that I thought of was the genie.
Okay, seeing the genie as a hero. Okay, I'm with you there.
I think there's something so special about having a mentor figure that's able to be at your level and meet you where you're at, but then also call you to something greater. Yeah. And I think that is more realistic to the kind of heroes that we have in our life and the ones that make an impact.
Sure. Favorite Disney villain?
I like Hades and
I've been getting that one a lot lately from people. He's a very popular villain.
Yeah, because he's not so bad.
No,
his role is just it's just his job.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's this is what I gotta do. I'm just here. That's what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to be Hades.
Let me think for a second, because I feel like I have a different one. No, I like him. He's just redeemable, so.
He is. He's
I could fix that.
Yeah, we're good there. Okay, so we want to move to kind of our closing reflection and our actionable takeaways.
Okay.
So if we were to distill this down for people, and we could give them three specific action items they could take today or this week, what would those be?
Okay, I know one for sure, and I'm going to think about the other two. So one is, even if you're not a big artist, but especially if you feel like you had some visual art background and for whatever reason you don't do it anymore, or it's just kind of not a part of your life, buy yourself a mixed media journal off of Amazon for $8 to $10. Go to the thrift store and buy some old books and just start making some collages. And you can plan to just do one a day and only have to do it for about a month or so. But what you will learn about the way that you approach your creative work and what your blocks are is just it's going to be so instrumental for you. So 15 minutes a day, it's a lot to commit to, but
50, not 15.
I'd say 50, yeah.
50.
So a good workout. Look at it as an artistic work. And you don't have to continue doing it, but there's something about collage, particularly if you've got some of that perfectionism, that just really helps to kind of break some of those blocks. So would recommend that to anyone. Second action item. I'm stealing this from The Artist's Way. I don't want to credit this for myself. Ryan, you've read it a little bit. This is one of my favorite activities to just kind of hone in on making your experience of living way more joyful and feel more accessible to you. Make a list of the favorite food you had as a child, the favorite movie you watched as a child, the favorite TV show you watched as a child, your favorite outing, your favorite restaurant. And then you don't have to do it all in 1 week, but start doing that again for yourself. So I love grilled cheese. I don't eat a lot of grilled cheese as an adult. It feels way too indulgent. And but when I need to center myself and remember that this life isn't that serious and life is great, I will make myself a great grilled cheese. And so I think releasing the rules that you've put on yourself as you've gotten older, and just, I think, learn how to be a kid again. Okay. So that's number 2.
Love it.
And then
how about a third?
A third. Start trying on the identity before it feels like it fully fits, and you'll grow into it. And honestly, it's not even something that you aren't. It's realizing what you already are that you've just been afraid to admit, and for whatever reason, and just even if it's you just saying it to yourself, yeah.
Okay, those are great ones.
Amazing.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah,
it's been a very enriching conversation for me and hopefully for anybody listening. So thank you for joining us for Yes and Land, where we honor the real story that you're living in, and we invite you to the next chapter filled with joy, hope, and connection. Thanks.